Alright, let's try this out. Hello fellow exiles. I want to introduce you to my new Mjolner build that I am currently working in, Harbinger. And well, it's a cyclone based Mjolner because now everyone is doing cyclone based Mjolner, simply because the elemental equilibrium chain that allows you to reduce the 50% of elemental resistance on hard targets like map bosses and shaper and guardians. And it's currently, to be honest, the only way to do it efficiently, because any curse, as you know, has limited effects on bosses. So the mandatory item to use the elemental equilibrium is having some source of cold damage to your cyclone, either from the jewelry, from the other items, or if you can allow it, your build can allow it, you can also try to run the Herald of Ice, which adds the cold damage to both your spells and attacks. And now, because the discharge triggers immediately after the cyclone hit, there is no delay between the elemental equilibrium effects. So you hit with the cyclone with cold damage, you lower the elemental resistances, and then immediately after that discharge triggers for both lightning and fire damage, and the cycle basically repeats. So it doesn't matter that discharge will trigger the elemental equilibrium once again, setting the plus 25 to both fire and lightning, because before it triggers again, you must hit the target again with your cyclone. So yeah, that's one thing. And currently in the 3.0 patch, we have the two new items that are extremely good with any Mjolnir build. The first item is, of course, the Ineas boots, because they allow you 20% of the time to have maximum numbers of power charges instead of just 1, 2 or 3 or whatever the number your build can generate. So this is extremely good, and it is also important to invest in the power charges and in the passive tree. The more the better. Currently build is utilizing 5 power charges. We don't have any more +1 power charges from the bandits quest, unfortunately, but hey, 5 charges is good. 5 power charges. Now this is a Juggernaut version of the Mjolnir, because I like Juggernaut, especially because of the unrelenting talent, unrelenting passive, because this is another 25% chance to gain maximum, this time, endurance charges. So together with Ineas boots, this too provides a very smooth and stable number of charges through the fight. This is important, because the more the charges you have when you discharge, the better the damage will be. It's the damage in its roots. Now the Juggernaut is also good because it has a good starting position as any Marauder, of course, but more than that, it has many armor nodes during the tree, but also and most importantly, this passive here, because this allows you to skip the additional accuracy support gem, and at the same time you are gaining lots of attack speed. More than that, the build is a standard Mjolnir build, as you can see here, so nothing fancy. I'm currently running the 3 purities: Purity of Lightning, Purity of Fire and Purity of Ice, to cover my resistance, because with those all uniques here, the resistance is a problem. Currently I have this kind of resistance, and it will be higher after my purities will level up a bit. Now, in terms of physical mitigation, I was running the build previously with the iron reflexes and I believe alpha skulls. I have it here, yeah, with that helmet and grace included, and I was able to reach around 15k armor. But I did a test in the Uber trial on the maps, on the traps, and versus certain bosses, And what can I say, it's not much of a difference between the 15k armor and 5k armor regarding the traps, the Uber Labyrinth, and certain bosses that hits hard with the physical damage. Because as you know, armor is kinda diminishing returns in terms of physical damage reduction. The harder the hit, the less impact armor will have, and this way it's not as good. You must invest all in armor to have it around 25-30k to be effective against those big hitters like Dominus, Touch of God, or Malachi Slam. And other than that, 15k, 10k, 5k, it really doesn't matter much. So I dropped the Grace, I dropped the Iron Reflexes, and this way the build is open now for few free purities, which is very important with those whole uniques you can see here. Now, in terms of damage, overall damage, it's getting better. I am currently using level 19, level 17, level 18 gems, and damage is so far so good, and it will rise higher further on when the character will level up a bit. I didn't went to the overlap yet, so I'm missing also this node here, which is another 30% increased damage. And if I get enough currency to get the skulls, I will also test the skulls brittle setup, because the Voto is a very good choice around this build, because you have dexterity, you have attack speed, you have movement speed, and most important, the chaos resistance. So all good stats, especially for Cyclone, which needs to be mobile, needs to be fast, needs to get around maps, around bosses very efficiently. But whenever I will be able, I will also use the Skull's Brittle. First, because it's 100, if it's perfect roll, 100 spell damage increase for both Discharge and Arc, and whatever you else use. But what is also interesting in the Skull's Brittle with the Juggernaut, it's this synergy here. Yeah, here. So 30% chance to gain an endurance charge when you are hit. And as you know, the Skulls has a suffix that whenever you use a skill, it hits you for a physical damage, for a certain amount of physical damage. So it can trigger this passive here to provide you with even more endurance charge generation. And this, together with this, can even create a string of max endurance charges in combat. More than that, the Skulls can trigger the cast when damage taken support gem. That can be also connected with spells like Play Vortex, or for example Vortex, that will also trigger power charges generation. It can be another source of power charge generation. So Skulls, not only 100 spell damage increase, but it also can provide you with even more endurance and power charge generation through the fight. But currently I'm using Devoto Devotion. I must gather some currency. I just started this character and Harbinger League a few days ago. So let's try a normal Atsiri run with this, and we'll see how it performs. I'm not sure that I will be using Arc versus bosses, or I will switch to Elemental Focus. I might test both during the fight. So just to recap, maybe I will show you my gem setup, passive tree. Once again, if you would like to, you can pause the video at any time, and then I will just go quiet and I will show you the build in action. So Mjolner setup, standard Mjolner setup. This is current Aura setup. I'm missing Enlightenment, but to be honest, Enlightenment isn't necessary right now. I still have like 62 mana left, so I can use my skills, because the Cyclone setup is connected with the Blood Magic gem. And I have plenty of life regeneration from the tree. Currently I have like where is it, 200 life regeneration per second, so Cyclone I can just spam, no problem. Then shield, I have Lip Slam with shield charge for quality of life and mobility. Boots are Righteous Fire setup. I just added burning damage and elemental focus support because whenever I'm using Righteous Fire to boost my spell damage overall in total, for currently 36 more spell damage, and will be 39 I believe when it level up to level 20. But also, if I'm using it, why not to boost it? I have like now 4.3k life, final build will have like 5.3k life, so the Righteous Fire on its own is doing quite a lot of damage if you support it with at least those 2 gems. In repentance, cast when damage taken setup, currently I'm using Immortal Call with Blade Vortex increased duration. I am not sure that I will drop it or not. I will test this especially in the Minotaur fight, if this is necessary or if this is rather unnecessary and unwelcome, because it will be problematic with the King's Guard healing via endurance charges. We'll see about that. And basically that's all in terms of gems. In terms of items, you can see at a glance it's almost all unique items. Only this ring is a rare now, and what is important on that ring is to have resistances and whatever stats you are missing from the tree, from the Javelry, and of course the cold damage. This is the only source of the cold damage on the build right now. So flasks, I have currently totally messed up flask setup. It's not what it will be in the final stage of the build. Currently I have just some flasks to remove bleeding, to remove burning, to turn off the Righteous Fire very quickly, although I should craft this on the another type of flask, because Ruby is the flask that I should have on while having on the Righteous Fire, and remove burning on that flask is not a good idea. You should have that on somewhere else. For example, you can switch the modes. The perfect flask setup would have the remove burning on, for example, Topaz flask or any other flask, and the Ruby flask would have something else. I'm using movement flask with the remove freeze and chill, because without the alpha's hole I can get frozen, which is very unwelcome, especially when opening boxes or just some bosses use cold damage that can freeze you. For example, the sulfur map. And basically that's my flask setup. As I said, it's not optimal. The perfect flask setup would have, I think, the Sergeants will be the best, because the build is still doing some critical damage via the power charges and discharge alone, and the Sergeants of will be the best choice. So remove bleeding Sergeant life flask, remove shock, for example, Ruby flask with Sergeant mode on, Sergeant movement flask with remove freeze immunity, remove freeze and freeze immunity. Then the Topaz flask, also Sergeant with something else. Shock is quite good on this flask. And then the Basalt flask to reduce the incoming physical damage even further. As far as Pantheon goes, I currently running this one here. It's working quite good with the Cyclone, especially the movement speed bonus. The physical damage reduction possibly is also very welcome here, as we are not running grace and armor right now to the large amount of armor. So this is very helpful, and I'm using this one here because the Inia boots took place of the Death Door boots, which provided the build with the bleed immunity. So this one here helps a lot with the bleed. It has a chance to avoid bleeding at all, and it's very useful, especially if you are doing labyrinth a lot. So this is my current setup. To recap the tree, I'm currently working towards those life nodes. but other than that, it's more and less the final passive tree. So this is how it looks like. The key passives are, of course, elemental equilibrium that I talked about early in the video, elemental overload that triggers very often. Right now, some aura reduction reservation nodes, of course 5 power charges, and of course the maximum available number of endurance charges. And what is also very good in terms of Juggernaut, it's that it has +1 to maximum power charges on its passive tree. Rest basically starts life nodes. Basically almost no damage increase from the tree, maybe outside of those few nodes here, because those are elemental damage, but this is not much in total. This is also spell damage increase, but not much in total. This is a bit spell damage increase, but other than that, almost non elemental spell damage increase from the tree. The damage comes from the jewels, comes from the repentance gloves, because this is the iron will that works globally with your strength. Damage comes from the Mjolner itself, 100% increase spell damage if triggered. From shield there is a 21 there, and from charges, because this build have bonuses per power charge to spell damage coming from here, 4% sorry, per power charge. From boots, that's another 5% per power charge, and from the Juggernaut passive right here, which is 6% per endurance charge. So in total, without even spending much of the points in the passive 3-4 spell damage or elemental damage increase, build has lots of damage increase in total, if you count all that good jazz. Alright, I will go silent now and we'll try to do the normal at 3 run and see how the build performs. Maybe it's will change the support gems for discharge in between or during the boss fights to see how it goes. Alright, thank you for watching and see you on the forums. Yeah, so there you go. One death because I accidentally hit the mirror one of the clones because I wanted to do some jump changing in the between the fight. However, it went pretty good. Despite I have very low life currently and my gems aren't leveled up and my purities aren't leveled up, so they don't provide as much as they should in the terms of the max resistances currently. So I will be updating the build in the later videos, or maybe just in the forum, in the guide, so see you there. Thank you for watching once again.